everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the DISCy Chicks. I am here with my partner in crime, Martha Forlines. I'm Cindy Jacoby, and we are finishing up our fourth episode on selling. We've talked about from a high D's perspective, from an I's perspective, from a steady last time, and then this time, the C, which we also call the precise communicator. So this will be fun.
And yes, high compliance can be really good salespeople.
They can.
Yes,
and selling
they
is
can.
just a component. We mentioned this the first time of, every person needs this in their career. And maybe it's not a natural, easy thing for you to sell, but anybody can be a good salesperson, as Martha spoke about. So we're going to spend our time focused on that precise communicator, that high C, that high compliant. Just refresher, what we know about them is that they're dependent, they're neat, they're careful, they're compliant. They want to get the job done right. They don't take a whole lot of risk. So they thrive on establishing routines and processes that they will follow in their sales process, but also in the workplace as well. So you can expect when you're working with a high precise person that they're going to be well organized, well prepared, which is a great trait to have when you're selling. You're not going to see somebody who's scattered all over the place.
Right. Yeah. And Cindy, I do think more of a technical sale with someone that's as precise as a high compliant would be in the selling process, but it doesn't have to be. But they're going to know their stuff. They're going to go in and have everything organized and ready to present to their potential buyers and do a really, really thorough job of it, which is great.
If it's a complicated sale, then a high compliant is the right person because they like the detail. They're not afraid to go into the detail. And most likely they're selling to somebody who is detail oriented. But again, they don't have to be, but that is a really good match. They also are better at a longer sales cycle than maybe a high D who's just trying to get stuff done.
Close it in.
Yeah, get it done now.
That's so true.
They have a lot more patience with that. So speaking of our friends, the D's, I'm going to start with how a high C or a precise communicator can and should sell to a high D. Now, we mentioned that the direct communicator is looking for results. They are more in a hurry than the high C typically is. Right. They're ambitious, forceful, decisive, and strong-willed, and they're pretty good at making a decision pretty quickly. So they're going to want you to get to the point. And I think you're going to hear a recurring theme with these high compliance is to not overdo it with data.
Right.
The high D does like data. They're task focused, but they don't want a lot. They want just the right amount, and then they'll be able to make a decision. So more high level, present your case. Don't choose for them. Say, this is choice A. If you do this, here's what's likely to happen. Here's what's likely to happen if you choose choice B, or if you don't buy from us at all. And they can quickly calculate, and they're not afraid to take a risk and be able to make a decision. So if you just don't overdo it with a high D, you can have a really good experience. If you have a short, clear pitch that gives solid examples of what the results might be, that's the easiest way to handle them. Don't get bowled over by their directness. Just move along and roll with it.
One tip too, from my perspective, is that there is a big pace difference between that high dominant and that high compliant. So that prospect or the salesperson with this high compliant is going to have to raise their energy up a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's just to get through the selling process. So it's not like they're going to have to be in that mode for hours.
Yeah, it's actually a nice enticement, right? If you can get right to the point and get it done, you can be done with having to sell to the high D.
Yes,
How about
exactly.
the low D?
Okay, yeah, the low D,
Reflective, right?
yeah, is the reflective communicator. So pace won't be a problem here. Because the reflective communicator, this low D, does operate at a much slower pace. So that high compliant can be more their natural self. And that reflective communicator is looking for agreement. So when you're looking at being that high compliant, selling to this reflective communicator who is more low key, then you're going to need to engage them by being agreeable and thoughtful, and take a more personal approach with them, because that they're looking for that level of comfort. It's
Right.
not really they're interested in getting to know you that well, but it's just a level of comfort in trusting you quicker. Remember, we're always advocating that how can you build trust as quick as possible in these sales calls. So the good news is these low Ds will work hard to adapt to your preferred style to keep this interaction pleasant and moving along and friendly. So in the case of that high compliant, have all that information and present it just kind of one bit at a time. Don't inundate them with data, because they are slower processors. And a high compliant would understand that, so that they don't get overwhelmed. And then they kind of miss the point on how this product could solve problems for them. So just really go with their pace, their level of digestion of the information, and then draw out specific information, and by asking questions of them and what their concerns are and what their needs are. And they will really appreciate you taking that more tailored approach with them to close the sale.
And remember, that low D is not looking for a fight. They're not looking for
No.
confrontation. It's the exact opposite. Like you started off, they're looking for agreement.
Agreement. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's talk about the high I. This is probably
Woo!
one of the tougher
Challenge.
matchups, because if you remember, the high I is a high energy, not necessarily detail oriented, which is pretty much opposite of these precise communicators who want to take it slow and go in depth as much as they can. So the biggest piece of advice is to raise that energy when you're dealing with a high I. When you're trying to sell them, you're going to have to just get out of your comfort zone, cultivate a warm and friendly approach. You don't have to be best friends, but you need to have enough energy that you can keep that high I engaged and be a little bit more personal in the approach versus just a robotic, detail oriented sell.
Right.
So the eyes like to focus on people. So you need to learn how to connect whatever it is you're selling to the outcome, and maybe of how that involves people more than the data, the hard facts and all that, because again, that high eyes just, that's not a turn on for them.
Right.
They will give you some tells if you just listen to them and ask questions, and try to remember to ask who questions, people focused questions. They want your attention, and they want you to be engaged with them, because they are very engaging. And remember, that's how they persuade people, right? They become friendly and engage. And so you got to have that back and forth with that high I to win them over. They need to be able to win you over as well, and create some type of relationship. But the good news is, very much like the high D, you can close pretty early with the high I, with that influencer. If you are get to your point, get the main facts done, look for agreement, and then you're done. If they like what they're hearing, you don't have to bludgeon them with details and
Right.
attachments and manuals and stats.
Right.
They're ready to move on and go have a cup of coffee. So
Yeah.
don't spend too much time trying to close them.
And if you feel so compelled, you can do the leave behinds.
Yes.
You know, if you have any questions, I'm going to leave this behind so that you can see that there is way more information about this product that you may be interested in.
I think sometimes as precise communicators naturally feel like if they don't tell everything or provide everything, the message is going to get lost. So maybe the person they're dealing with is not the decision maker.
Yeah.
They would feel a little bit terrified just to walk away from a high influencer,
Yeah.
without leaving them something, because maybe that person's boss or somebody else who's helping make that decision is going to ask a lot of details that that outgoing high eye is not going to be able to answer. So that's a great point. If you give your leave behinds or access to more information, they can digest that, in bite-sized pieces, just like that low D that you're talking about.
Right. Well, I've got a headline for this next one.
Okay.
I'm going to be talking about the high precise communicator, high compliant, communicating with a reserve communicator. So the headline this is probably one of the easiest sales outside of selling to another high compliant.
Yeah.
Right, Cindy?
Yeah, the low I.
Yeah, this reserved communicator is looking for mutual benefit, but they really have a pace and a cadence and a way about them that is a lot like how that high compliance shows up. So, they prefer to be socially discreet and can struggle in engaging with people that are different from them. So this is good news for that high compliant.
No hugs and high fives needed.
Yeah, the overlap is really big, and that is going to make it easier. They're going to want lots of data. Oh, what a relief, right? So that high compliant can be themselves and represent and the information the way they would normally do it, not feeling constrained like they would have with that high influencer. So just make sure that you are prepared, which a high compliant would be very prepared with all the information, and present, what you're asked, what you've asked them about, and what they want to see. You don't need to inundate them, but they will be very interested in the information, and the trust will be easier to build with this reserve communicator than any of the others we've talked about so far.
Because they don't trust anybody. The reserve communicator, the low eyes, that they're the ones that are
buttoned up.
Yeah.
Buttoned up. Yeah. But you just don't want to overwhelm them is the big thing. And, gain their trust so they know that this information you're leaving behind is accurate and researched, and it will make them feel way, way more confident and possibly get to that sale really quickly.
Yeah. They don't want to be hoodwinked,
No, not at all.
They are looking to make sure their decisions are pretty precise as well. You're right. Yes. Right. It's a great fit.
Great.
All right. Let's move on to our high steadies.
Yes.
As we know from all of our years of listening to the DISCy Chicks, that the steady communicator is looking for security, predictability, reliability. All those words just, feel like a big hug for a high S. So when you're dealing with a high S, the pace would be very similar to what a high compliant or a precise communicator already has. So you don't have to use too much energy, but they are people focused. And so, and they are personable. So you do want to do some kind of warm up or, asking about family, things like that, if you know them. But they like things that are slower pace, clearly defined, and the expectations are also there. Again, they don't like surprises, but neither does a precise communicator. They're just as low risk as you are that's selling to them. So it's a good matchup because of pace The high steady can cover information because again, they want to make sure that this is the right decision. Again, they don't want any surprises. They do like facts and figures, but again, don't overwhelm them with that. And they're also it doesn't work well to try to close a high steady quickly. They don't like that pressure of, if you sign up now, you can save $500. No, that's just a big immediate turn off, and their shell will go up and they'll smile and nod, and but you've lost. So they want to hear assurances. They want to hear they have time to make a decision. And they want you to follow up with them. You know, if you give them time, do follow up with them. Keep things warm, friendly, and not frantic or pressure filled. So I think that's the energy that you need to be watching when you're working with them. So again, keep the words reliability, service, steadiness, all those things, and you'll have a great experience with the high S. You know, they're looking for that security. They want to make things better for their team, for their company, for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, the good news is there's really good compatibility between high C's and high S's. Cindy and I've talked about behavior style compatibility. So they get along pretty doggone well. So I would say it's not going to be as difficult as what I'm about to talk about.
Oh, Lord, put on your seatbelt.
I know. So now we're going to the low steady, which is a dynamic communicator. So the minute someone that is a high compliant hears the word dynamic, they probably have apoplexy, right?
It's not on their list of favorite words, that's for sure.
No. But the dynamic communicator is looking for new ideas, new solutions, things that really solve problems for them. And dynamic people are often confident and very fast-paced, high energy, very, very different from that high compliant, high precise communicator. So there's going to be some adaptation going on behalf of that high compliant to raise that energy up and to really be able to show compatibility with someone that is very, very different from them. And I'm saying demonstrating compatibility in order to gain trust. Again, you know, you have this first impression moment. What do you have? Seconds now, right?
Yeah.
So if you're showing up too slow and too deliberate, you may lose them pretty early. So challenge yourself to adapt to that faster pace and keeping that end goal in mind, which is coming up with new ideas and great solutions for them, because that's what they're looking for. And if you have your data to substantiate that you have these newer, better, faster solutions for them, that will appeal to them greatly. So go in prepared, understanding, and whatever you can do to try to figure out what they are ahead of time. I always urge people to do that. See if they're on YouTube, take a look at their LinkedIn profile and see if you can kind of read it. But otherwise, your job is just to interact and present multiple options because they like that, and to lead to what their preferred outcome is based on the information they've given you by your Q&A session with them and finding out exactly what they're looking for.
And I think what might shock and surprise a precise communicator when you're working with a low steady like this, a dynamic one, is that they may see things in your product in different ways to use them than you would ever think of. And instead of saying, no, that's not how it's, that's not how it's supposed to be, go with them. Remember, they're looking for something new. And this, I think, just from what we've just talked about with the high S and the low S, it's so important to know your audience because those two descriptions are so different, right? I mean, the S is looking for reliability and something that they can trust, and that would have data to
Agreement.
back up that it's going to do what you say it's going to do. Most products have some part of that, but they also have some newness to them. That's why you're selling them. So you would want to focus the new stuff, the new and different, with that dynamic communicator, and old reliable sections of that, and your years of producing this and years of satisfied customers with the high S. And imagine if you focus on the wrong thing, it's just going to be, it'll be, leave a bad taste in their mouth. It's just gonna be boring for the dynamic communicator to have old reliable, as what you're trying to sell.
And the good news is, if you win them over, they're going to close fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is a good trait for this dynamic communicator.
Especially if they see multiple ways to use your product. You're like, that'll work. Yeah, that's a great idea. I never thought of that. And get their opinion on this. It's not you don't have the right answer necessarily for them. You're proposing something, and they're going to bounce it off the walls a couple of times and see what sticks. And you might get some great ideas from them too on how to sell it next time.
Exactly.
All right. And Nirvana, here we
bring
go.
It home.
A high C selling to another high C. Again, for once, someone is looking for information, right? And you have it because you are also a high C. So give them the data. They will love it. They will read it. They will rely on it. They will ask a lot of questions. So you should have a really good conversation when it comes to selling to another precise communicator. It'll be more formal, like you prefer to be. The energy level should be similar. You'll really have a chance to shine if you come prepared and come with all the data, which you likely will, because you're a high C as well. Just anything you promise, make sure you follow up with, because they'll remember, and they ask a lot of questions, and they might ask questions that you don't know the answer to, and that's okay. Maybe terrifying to you, but it's okay. Write it down and find out the answer, but make sure you get back to them, because it is a test, and they do want to know that. That's why they're asking, because again, they don't like risk. They want to see the future. They want to make sure that they have enough data to make a strong decision and know what's going to happen in the future. They know what's going to happen in the future precisely because they rely on what happened in the past, what the tests were, what the results have been. Again, they don't need to go out to the wild west with a product. They want to know, precisely what to expect. Right.
Well, that's great. Well,
pretty straightforward with that one.
Yeah, no, it makes it easy peasy for them, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're talking about the low compliant, and this is the pioneering communicator. So you can imagine, again, this selling opportunity is going to be an adventure to this pioneering communicator, but they are looking for a vision. So if you are able to read them and see kind of where they're coming from, then that's going to help you connect. They're inquisitive, they're outgoing, they're purposeful, they're highly innovative. So again, looking at big picture ideas of how to use the product is going to be a really good thing to do with this pioneering communicator. And the sales interaction is going to be interesting, again, because this high C is going to have to push themselves to adapt to this low C that's energetic and really their mind just goes really fast. And remember that high compliant operates at that slower pace. So it's going to be more of a challenge. So being ready and being able to ask the right questions of this pioneering communicator to get the information you need to sell to them. So high compliance are great question askers. Be curious, get information from them so that you can see, oh, this person really wants to have a multi-purpose use of my product. Let me pitch them on that. So you'll be able to pick up on your clues and they are rule breakers. Pioneers are rule breakers. I'm one of them. I know, Cindy, you're one of those too. But demonstrating the rules and then figuring out how to let them know that they can break them
Yeah.
in utilization of this product can make that connection magical for you. But ask for their input and don't be afraid to push back on their ideas if there are other questions that they have. So be collaborative, get along with them. You don't really have to push this pioneer. You know, if they trust you, they're going to buy from you. So I think, you know, just get outside your comfort zone a little bit and have some fun with it. Really.
Yeah, they don't want to know the details,
No.
at all, really.
Mm-mm.
That visionary part of this that you're talking about,
Right.
they want to see where they're going and can this fit in. It doesn't have to fit perfectly. So you don't
Mhm.
have to make it fit perfectly, but that's their job. If it's
Mhm.
good enough, they're like, well, I think this can get me to where I'm going. We may have to do it this way or this way. And you just, okay, yep. Unless it can't work that way, but
Right.
they don't need to know exactly how it's going to work because they just want to know what it's going to look like at the end,
Yeah.
and will this help me get there? I think
Right.
that's a really good point.
Right. Well, excellent.
Yeah.
Well, that's a
Well,
wrap on selling tips here, Cindy. It's
go
been good.
sell, everybody. Yeah. Figure out what you're highest in and, what your style is and do your homework. No matter what your style is, do your homework before you go and make a sale. And just keep in mind, the way that you want to be spoken to could be very different, as we've been demonstrating over the last 4 episodes of some are going to want to know that reliability. Some are going to want you to leave it wide open and use it the way they want to. And you've got to be flexible enough to go with whatever style there is and read the room. You don't need to have their disc report to know a high D. They're going to let you know. They're going to stand up and say, you got 5 minutes, go. So be ready for that, be ready for that.
Yeah. And, the good thing is, in order to be successful in selling to these styles that are very different, is lean into your strengths of that high compliant is being detailed, being organized, having analytical capabilities, and, use your creativity, especially with some of these styles that are very, very different from yours.
Yeah. If you're prepared, like you would be as a high C, prepare also for what you might run into.
Right.
Not just prepare for your product, but prepare for your customer.
Yes.
All
Yes.
right. Well, this is a wrap. This has been a lot of fun, and it's always good to review. And I think every salesperson needs to have some kind of training in behavior styles. But again, we're always selling all the time, even if it's just our ideas or our suggestions,
Right.
or we want to influence on where we go to dinner.
Yeah.
It works. It works in all cases too. It doesn't
does.
just have to be a formal sales role.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us. And remember, you can check us out on YouTube and Facebook for the video version of our podcast. And you can go to our website, DISCyChicks.com, and all of our podcasts are there. So have at it and enjoy learning and listening from us.
And we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.